I worked for this government for good 30 years.
Yes.
Out of the 30, the 20, I was a politician. You go all over Uganda, you hear where they don't know Matembe. But I never got a free vehicle. I never got a free vehicle. I got a loan and bought my vehicle.
Yes.
I never got a free driver. I never got anything free. Everything was from my Kasumoro money of 7 million a month, which I earned to travel the whole country, to go everywhere. Now, who are they? These new people who have taken the biggest budget in this country. Who are they to say that even, look at the teachers. The teachers cannot be paid. The doctors do not have their salary. They don't even have vehicles. The hospitals are suffering. And then the members of parliament, moreover, 529, whose talk we don't even hear, whose debate we don't even see. They want beyond 200 million to buy the... Who are they? Who are they? Is there any single member of parliament who is better than a teacher who teaches my children? Who is better than a doctor who has, for instance, operated my eye? What are they doing? There they are. And then, of course, when you go to government itself, because of the greed to stay in power forever, they have shut down the people. Civil society cannot talk. It was shut down.
Most of them were disbanded.
SEDU. I was spearheading SEDU, Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, which was good, to oversee and watch over the democratic governance. You remember chapter 4, you remember Greece, you remember, because we are the voice talking. When they shut us down, the rest of civil society now are concerned with every day-to-day official work, not public. Do you hear their voice anymore? The voice of the people, the people have become voiceless, because those whom they elect to go and voice for them, voice for themselves, the government they put in power shuts them down. The civil society was supposed to be talking for them, raising their concerns. They are shut down. And if you continue, they arrest you, like Kabureta. Recently, they arrested Kabureta. And we had to go and say, but why do you arrest Kabureta? Because he is talking about economic what? Mobilizing people for economic empowerment. Actually, now, anybody now who goes to the public to open the eyes, to teach people, unless you are NRIM. If you are not NRIM, you are another person, and you go to the public to talk to the people. They don't want you to do so.
On many occasions, I remember even on the eve of or before the elections, of the 2021 elections, about the closure of many civil society organizations, President Museveni addressed the nation and said that some of these organizations were actually dealing with Europeans actually to do uncertain things, to do bad things to this country, which is not good for democracy. He said that's why organizations like Greece, like SEDU, and this one actually, which was putting a lot of money in Uganda, DGF, they were doing
what I'm telling you now, well, I have talked about absence of democracy in this country. This country has nothing to do with democracy. Democracy ended long ago when the term limit was removed, the age limit was removed, and the whole thing surrounded NRM as a party. And as a party, it is in form of one individual, and that is one president, Museveni. And unless NRM says something, anybody else should do what? Should not say anything. Now, in democratic governance, we have alternative views. That is what democratic governance means. Moreover, multi-party democratic governance. It understands and recognizes divergent views. And these divergent views are respected. When you run for government and one party wins, the other party is opposition. Opposition is not an enemy. Opposition is a party which offers an alternative view, which says if it was me, I would do like this. And therefore its role in parliament and in government is to constructively critique the government.
Yes.
By opening its eyes. You are failing here, you are failing here, you are not doing right here. That is what opposition is supposed to do. Now, civil society organizations are supposed to supplement the work of government. Because I established many civil society organizations, particularly human rights and women's rights. And before the government went into dictatorship, before President Museveni's government became a dictatorship, we were working, supplementing the work of the government. Why? Because we reach everywhere. Civil society, you find an organization, NGO is there in a village, they mobilize themselves, they try to make themselves knowledgeable, they equip them with the knowledge to do with the law, with the knowledge to do economy, with the knowledge, and they grow. And so they reach everywhere. We were reaching everywhere. I remember if it was not for civil society organizations like USO, when the first lady came here and we with her, we mobilized and formed USO. We redeemed the orphans. The government could not have done anything to the orphans whom we redeemed, and some of them are now big people in this country. And then, of course, Action for Development, then Women Lawyers Association, then all these organizations, Foundation for Human Rights, we started these organizations and we are working very closely with the government because we were complementing the work of government. Now, I want the public listening to me to understand what happens when dictatorship comes in. Because when you are working, civil society, you are supposed to do what is good. You are supposed to criticize what is not good. Because you are working for the people.
Yes.
The people. So when things go wrong, you are supposed to question them and challenge them. In a democratic government, when you challenge them, they feel good. They say, hey, we have foreign shot here. Because I remember when I was in civil society in Mbarara District Women Development Association, the Ministry of Gender itself gave me funding to go and train women in Mbarara, because for them they did not have the capacity to go and train. So they funded me in Mbarara to go and train women. And then even when I would bring proposals and put them there, even American embassy, where, they would fund us. And we mobilize and we train women on their legal rights, on economic empowerment. And the country was better. I'm telling you, the people on the ground were much better than what they are now. But when dictatorship comes in, it doesn't want any criticism. And therefore, if you are a civil society organization, they label, because you will criticize, so they label you an enemy. And now, many of the civil society organizations which have remained here, some of them, they are agents of what? Some of them have been recruited as agents of the government. So the most important thing, bad thing that has happened here in this country is close down of democratic governance. Right now we are in a total dictatorship because I have lived in this country for long.
Yes.
These days you go and sit near somebody and you raise anything to, but government, they walk away, they run away. They are so scared. The fear has gripped Ugandans just like it was in Amin's time, as it was in Obote's time. And for me, I'm so glad that I'm one person who has remained alive in these governments. I don't know Obote one, but I know Amin and I know Obote too. And sometimes I say that probably why some of these people who are in NRIM, probably why they don't understand when we are telling them what we see, is because they never remained here. While I was here suffering during Obote 2's time, President Museveni and his people, Bushmen, were not here. They were in the bush. They can't tell you, they can tell the story of what they suffered in the bush, but they can't tell the story of what we are going through here. If I tell you how I suffered, Me, I suffered. I was at Uganda College of Commerce teaching. There was this man called Wani. He would say, look at your nose. Go, follow your brother in the bush. Young men who were in school, in UCC, they had to go away. You would say, look at your nose. And the man tortured me, Matembe, go and follow your brother in the bush. And, it was so painful. We suffered, we ran. If you ask my husband, they arrested him, put him in prison, knocked his teeth. We went through many bad things. We know this. And so when President came in, we embraced 100%. Never did I expect that such a thing would come back. Now I'm the one now suffering. Can you imagine? I suffered during Obotte's time. Now yes. During my brother's time, he throws me away, get out, and I was voluntarily retired when I still had the energy to work for this country. But I'm so glad that for me, because God protects me. Hey, who can come? When the angels are on guard, you let them. But otherwise, I'm here now suffering. I expected us to be redeemed. But I want to tell President Museveni and his people that what we saw in Amin's time, what we saw in Obotte's time, what we experienced is what we are experiencing now. And therefore, it is a dictatorship. It is a dictatorship. That's why people are suffering.
Doctor, back to justice.
And by the way, one thing I want to say is this. Yes, there are these ADF whom they are arresting and killing. But I want to tell you that if it was not for dictatorship and closing space for other people of alternative views, we wouldn't be having these wars. We wouldn't. Because if all Ugandans who can speak can freely speak here, if Ugandans can go and hold free and fair elections here, when the Electoral Commission is not a direct agent of NRM, if the Electoral Commission was independent, if electoral processes were fair and running in the right way, if we go and we lose the election, would we run to the bush or would we have to be arrested? And one thing that hurts me is that President Museveni himself experienced the rigging of elections. He experienced the rigging of elections, and he said, when these elections are rigged, I will go to the bush. And when they were rigged, he went to the bush. And he used to say, when he came back, that democracy is not a form.
Yes.
Democracy is not in form, and I agreed with him 100%, because Obote was saying, we went through elections, but which elections? When like 40 seats were already declared unopposed because people were closed out. When you are going to your polling, you are locked out. You cannot be nominated. Time takes over. Time runs up when you are imprisoned somewhere. And then you say that is election. So President Museveni came and said, democracy is substance, not in a form.
Not form. Yeah.
It is not in a form. It must be in substance. Can you imagine that this is the very person who is now saying, I'm elected by Ugandans?
Yeah.
He has turned elections and democracy into mere form, not substance. And I wonder, I usually wonder, for me, Miria, I can't say something today and tomorrow I say another one. I stick to what I say. But now, you mean he doesn't see that his democracy has turned into a total form, nothing to do with substance.
Doctor, do you sit back and ponder about or even regret trusting President Museveni for all those years?
Me?
Yeah, do you regret?
Me, I don't regret anything, because first of all, and I say it clear and I usually repeat it, and the Nup people don't like me. The opposition doesn't like me. Me, I say I'm so grateful to President Museveni.
Yeah, okay.
I will say it and repeat it again. Because when he came and took over government, he established a political environment that enabled me to realize my childhood dream. My childhood dream was to fight for women's rights, for gender equality and women's empowerment. I had that dream when I was 9 years. That's why I studied law. That's why, for me, when I went to politics, I didn't just go there because I wanted politics. I went to politics to use it as a platform to espouse the cause for gender equality and women's empowerment. And the good thing, and I call it, that is God's purpose for my life. That's why he gave me my mouth. That's why he gave me my courage. That's why he gave me... Do you know that, by the way, in 1998, I was chosen as one of 100 women world over who had made a tremendous impact and acted as role models for the women in the whole world. Do you know that? I have my certificate. If it was not for President Museveni, who came in and took over and came with the woman question high upon the agenda, I would have died with my dream, because during Obote's time, there is one time after, when we had formed ACFOD in Nairobi, after the Nairobi conference, we formed ACFOD, and Okero was now in power because Obote was overthrown when they were in Nairobi at the conference. And the first lady who had led the delegation never came back. And they had not taken us on their delegation because we were not UPC. You see?
Yes.
So we formed Action for Development, and we wanted to demonstrate against the rape and the murder of women. During that Okero time, it was terrible. They were murdering women, they were raping them everywhere. And we said, no, we must demonstrate. And when they knew that we were going to go in the city square, the current constitutional square, they organized that they will go there and rape us. And so one woman was working in Radio Uganda. She rang us at night and said, you people don't go to the city square.
Yeah.
They have planned, the army had planned that they will go and rape us. And so we said, let's go and prove. We went not as demonstrators this time. Each of us went their own way and walked in front of those shops at the city square. But for sure, the army had surrounded the city square and they were ready to go and rape us. You can imagine. And it is after that now that President Museveni came in with NRM and he said, women, where are you? Oh my God, you should read my book which I wrote. So for me, I don't regret. First of all, he brought that environment. Second, let me tell you, whether you like it or not, President Museveni's NRM, the National Resistance Movement, picked us from a deep ditch. A deep ditch. For me, I remember one time I was watching the TV. Imagine I was a lawyer. Lawyers were turned into nothing. We could not talk. We were... I can't go into that. It's a long story. But it was too much. One time I remember I saw, was it Tito Okero on TV and Basilio Okero. And you know they were not educated.
Yes.
And Basilio was saying, you know, Oboche caused the ditch problem. And I think I picked a stone. I said, I'm going to throw this stone at my TV. As if it was the TV which was causing the problem. I'm telling you to see how deep we had gone. For sure, anybody who refuses to say that really NRM government, when they came from the bush, they lifted us out ditch. I want to say that at least, for the first 10 years, it was fantastic. Fantastic. Because for me, when they said, hey, women, where are you? I came out like a dog which was caged somewhere. But the gate was opened. I ran out and fought for the women's cause. And I can tell you, during my time of 20 years in the politics of this country, women really reached somewhere. They really did, especially those in my Mbarara district. You know, Mbarara now is 7 districts or whatever. By then it was 49 sub-counties and 10 counties. But women there, even when you go there, these days I meet young boys, they say, hello, how are you? You were a friend of my mother. She was your agent. You know, even the family would say, Matembe is there. The pictures would be there. And we worked. I can assure you we worked. And then we came out with the constitution. And you know, I was a constitutional commission. I traversed the whole country. And we told to Ugandans, and we said this is the first time Ugandans are going to decide to make their nation themselves. And we did.
And after doing that,
we did.
President
So
Museveni
for me,
you.
I don't regret. I did. He gave me the opportunity to serve my country. He gave me the opportunity to also be known. I mean, I want to ask. Miria Matembe was there teaching. I was at the Bank of Uganda as a lecturer in law and English. That name Matembe, the only one who knew it was the what? The people I was teaching. Whereas and my family.
So
but
you were known
because
to a few.
when NRM government came in and I embraced it, I ran with my cause to the whole world. I'm telling you, when one time I stood at an African platform to speak on behalf of Uganda, you know, I used even before I became this minister, you know, me, I was actually cheated all throughout. Because despite the fact that I was vibrant and working so hard, I was busy working. Other people were busy becoming ministers, big. And last minute, President Museveni decided, I think this woman, because she has integrity and corruption is killing us, let me give her this job. And when I went there and went with my vibrance and speaking the truth, it could not work. I said, get out of here. So I went. But even before I was a minister, I used to represent Uganda. Me, I used to represent Uganda everywhere. In Beijing, when one day I stood at the international platform in Beijing conference to speak on the participation, the strategies to increase participation of women in politics and governance. And after I had talked to this whole vast meeting, people stood up and clapped. I said, surely, can I now not thank Museveni for enabling me, at least as an individual, to realize my vision and my passion? That's why you see me seated at home very comfortable, although still suffering, running with women's cause, because I had a childhood dream. And the Lord enabled me through the government of Museveni to realize this childhood dream. And I documented it. And I lived beyond. I'm telling you. And my children grew up. Museveni came when my biggest child was 10 years. And eventually they studied, they finished. I have grandchildren, I have what? So, for me, I don't regret. I serve God. So on the other hand,
you're grateful for about the coming of Museveni.
Yes, I mean, let me tell you, you people, you are very interesting. Do you mean when somebody does wrong? When somebody does wrong, then you cancel everything right that he has done? Do you cancel everything right that he has done? In fact, I said goodbye to him very well, because I told him, sir, in Chankwa's 2003, I said, you have done so good. You have done so good for us. I wouldn't want you being called a swine, like you call others swine. I told him, you see, you call Obote swine, you call Amin swine, but they came also as presidents. Now, I wouldn't want you to be called a swine. I want you to finish with the term limit and go home and guide Uganda. He refused. I told him he refused. Now, if he had really listened to me and organized the Ugandans so that we get a new president, the NRM would have won as a party. Because the NRM, by the way, they stole the movement. The party stole the movement. He's a thief. They stole the movement and made it into a party, which was very wrong. And therefore, it would have won, while other parties, and by the way, I had an opportunity to go and talk to him. To say, please, when we were in the CA, we said that we want to amend the playground, you know, like when you have football and the playground is spoiled, it has holes and hills and whatever, you have to repair it. And after repairing it, then you would start playing the football. So we said that the football the democratic football, the democratic ground for Uganda had got pitfalls, had got hills, has got. So we have to clean it and level it. And after we had leveled it, then we would go into the real multi-party political democracy. We would go into a match. That's what we believed. That's what we are saying. That's why we suspended, the political parties, let them be in abeyance. And then I remember when we were discussing in CA, Sister Ogwaro said, but how can you put us in mortuary? You put us in mortuary and we cannot go out to operate. I stood up, I said, no, Sister, you are not in mortuary, you are in intensive care. You are in intensive care and we are taking care of you. So once you heal, then we shall go, all of us, into the playground. And we had said that NRIM as a movement will be the mother of the good new political parties. You hear? We were saying all these. And so when FDC came onto the scene and President Museveni got up to fight Besigye, I went and reminded him. I said, but Your Excellency, don't you remember we said that the movement will be the womb for the new good multi-party parties to form the multi-party political system in Uganda? Now, the NRIM party has been born out of the movement. FDC has been born out of movement. So the time has come for the movement to produce the parties. Why don't you leave these two parties to be free and organize and mobilize, and then we move on? And I even told him, you have lost the opportunity to hand over power peacefully, because you have failed. You have removed the term limit. I said, why don't you accept to retire, to be called the person who built the good multi-party political system in Uganda? Because I was saying, if NRI mobilizes and you leave FDC, because the members of FDC were all from NRM anyway, so the NRM had produced the two parties. And I said, leave Besigye to mobilize, and he will not get many votes, but he will get like 30% when you get like 50%, and then the next year the party, they will increase, and then eventually by the time you retire, you will have built a good multi-party political system in this country. In other words, the football field would have been cleaned up.
Didn't he to your voice?
I told him, even if you go and ask him, me, I talk things against him, but at the same time, when I get opportunity, I tell him, and I say the good he does. So I don't regret.
Okay.
What I regret is that what I had hoped for is not what happened. Actually, when I was still in NRM, I used to see people parting with President Museveni, getting so angry. And I was wondering, why are you so angry? I would ask them, like my uncle Kazora parted first, and the Bernadette Vigiru. I remember they were so passionate with him, and then when they part, they were angry. So I was saying, why are they angry? Until I parted with him over removal of term limits.
In 2005,
Many people who are ignorant, they are all who are malicious. They are say that, you see, when Matembe was dismissed from being a minister, that's when she parted company. No, what made us part was the removal of the term limit. I didn't want the term limit to be removed, because I was a commissioner and I knew what Ugandans want. I knew the background to it. So when we parted on that issue, I got angry. I started getting angry, and I realized why I was getting angry. I had to repent and abandon it. I was getting angry because I came to realize that how can this man make me a fool? So I felt that he made me a fool. How could I believe him 100%? and become a fool that I was. So now I realize that's why everybody who parted with him were angry. Because he really makes you look like fools. For you, you are following genuinely 100%, knowing that he's with you and you are aiming at one particular thing, and that is serving Uganda and developing it and making it so democratic and making human rights enjoyable. For you, that's what is in your head. We want a Uganda, a better Uganda, not a Uganda of wars and fights and suffering.
President Museveni still refers Uganda to a democratic country up to now. But what you say, it's contrary.
But what does it matter if somebody says, I'm democratic when you are not? I mean, and let me tell you, he knows. Although he made me to a fool, and I believed him after the time I found that him and I were not in the same agenda, the same vision. Our visions were different. Mine was a vision for a better Uganda. His was an ambition for life presidency.
Okay.
So you can see that is the difference. My vision for a better Uganda where both men and women are enjoying life and are doing very well, no injustice, no what. For him, he didn't have a vision for Uganda. He had ambition to be a life president, which we didn't know. All of us did not know. So he uses us like fools. You support, in the end you go, in the end you go. So he knows very well that there is no democracy in this country. He knows very well that there is voter purchase. Purchase, 100% purchase. Let me tell you, I wanted to go back to, I didn't want to go to politics, but when the elderly people were suffering, as I've told you, the elderly people have suffered in this year. I remember now, being thrown out of their land, being beaten by their children. I was crying, saying, but who will redeem these? Who can protect the elderly people? Then what do I see? I see that they have created seats for elderly people.
The elderly people
I
in the
said,
parliament,
God has heard me cry, so he's calling me to go and represent the elderly. And I tell you, I had in my mind what I would go and put forward a very organized strategy for the elderly people
them,
in Uganda.
Yeah?
Because the elderly people are, after doing, you remember Uganda is standing on the shoulders of the elderly people. But once they are tired and they retire, they forget them like garbage. They just forget them as if they don't exist. And yet other countries, they recognize and acknowledge their senior citizens. So I thought this is my opportunity to go and bring up a strategy to sort out the elderly people. I went to contest for these elections. There was one seat, one woman representative of the elderly in the whole country. Now, in all the women in Uganda, really, whom do you see would really run with the whole issue to fight for the elderly people, particularly the women the woman representative, to be team for the elderly, to put the issues of the women at the table of the elderly conversation? Who would you see would be the one? I, with all my 3 degrees, with all my past experience, commissioner, minister, Pan-African Parliament, what, I offered my candidature. Do you know the woman whom they brought to Ngwenarayemu? You will never hear her. I can assure you, you can never. She was a community development officer. A community development officer who studied at Nsamizi long time ago. The story they tell. That is the woman who defeated Miria Matembe to represent the elderly. I'm not being proud, but I'm bringing things on the table so that you may see. They brought over, it was 150 million, which the NRM gave to that woman. And it was real purchase. I went there. I think God wanted me to go and see what kind of elections take place. Purchase, bulk purchase, getting all the buses, putting all the electorate, because it was the senior citizen, bringing them, putting them in hotels, feeding them in hotels, paying them transport, while Electoral Commission had already paid them, and putting them in a venue to vote. So it was already concluded, already bought, and I saw, voter purchase. And President Museveni knows that if there were free and fair elections, he would not be the president of Uganda right now.
So did you go into
and
that
he
election
he would not be rejected. He would be, he would be honored. He would have retired and be honored, and now look what Uhuru in Kenya. He's rested. And so many have rested. Now, why should we be now? Like, for instance, you are telling me, do you regret? When I don't regret serving Museveni, then people say, look what her, she's with him. Because when you overstay and you do wrong things, then the wrong erases the good.
In the recent interview, President Museveni said he'll be remembered for saving Uganda from a failed state. He'll be remembered for, of course, reviving security, development. The economy is growing. Do you concur with him? He saved Uganda from a failed state.
Where is it now? The truth is, what he's saying, he redeemed it. It had died. He redeemed it and raised it up. But what does it matter when you revive a person and then kill that person? You revive and kill the person. If President Museveni had got off the scene at the time of removal of term limit, if he had come with a vision to prepare Uganda never to go back into the pit, he would not have come with the idea of life presidency. Because I want to ask you, how does he redeem Uganda from a failed state when he has not redeemed it from dictatorship, life presidency? Because why he went to the bush was because Uganda was going in a failed state because of dictatorship and militarization. That's why it had gone into the failed state. Now he came, he picked it out. And when he started building it, then he became a dictator who has militarized the state, and therefore Uganda has gone back to where he had picked it.
So Uganda is a failed state.
It has not reached where he had picked it. It has not reached where he had picked it. But let him continue. Let him continue, because every single year our matters are not getting worse. Every single year our matters are not getting worse.
Doctor, this year we've been crying about, and actually I saw you last time or previously, crying out for the help of, for the release of Joseph Kabuleta, of which recently President Museveni responded to that the abductions we've been crying about, he's not aware of them. He's not aware of abductions, kidnaps.
He said that?
Yes, he's aware of the arrests of people in drones and what, but they are not abductions as we term them.
What are they?
They are arrests, not abductions.
And eventually are they seen? Because that is exactly what Amin was doing. You could come and abduct people and they disappear and we don't see them. I want to ask all those people who were abducted during elections, whose wives are still crying, whose mothers are still crying, whose children are still crying, where are they? Because for me, when you come, there is a procedure of arresting an alleged offender. And by the way, President Museveni and his team need to know that according to Uganda law, everybody is presumed innocent until proved guilty. That's why the procedures for arresting are there. They come and arrest you in a dignified manner.
Yes.
Because you are declared, you are presumed innocent, but there are certain charges which are being raised, which are not yet proved, and therefore you are an innocent Ugandan. That's why the policeman must come identify himself, put forward his identity card. I'm so and so, I'm Miria Matembe, I'm an inspector of police, I've been sent here to arrest you because you are alleged to have, stolen somebody's cow. Okay? I say, okay, I walk with you because I'm supposed to bow to the law. So I walk with you, we go to police, they put me in police. There is a law which says that once I'm arrested, I should not stay in police beyond 48 hours. Actually, they used to be over 12. But when we were in CA, we said that, look here, our systems are broken, we don't have sufficient staff, we don't have enough, we in the villages, we don't have courts, we don't have what. Let us be reasonable. And they increased the hours. We made them 48 hours. And while you are there in 48 hours, you are not denied your relatives to see you. You are not denied your lawyer to come and see you. You are allowed. You are an innocent person. They visit you. They talk to you. They do all this. And then within 48 hours, they go and charge you. When you are charged, you go to prison. When you go to prison, there is a law. I think almost every offense is bailable. There are very few capital offenses which are not bailable.
Yes.
And so when you go to prison and your relatives come, they apply for bail. Yes, bail is not automatic. There are certain conditions which you must fulfill.
Yes.
And when you fulfill them, then they release you on bail. So that because you are innocent, you should not be staying in this prison for what? Because they are imprisoning you for nothing. Now they release you on bail, you keep reporting, and there is certain limited time for a case to be decided. They should decide the case. Either you have won or you have lost. If you have lost, you go to prison. You have a right to appeal. Now, those bailable offenses, the law which I studied, which I knew, unless it has changed, is that once those capital offenses which are not bailable, when you stay in prison for more than 1 year, with your case not established, not heard or concluded, you get automatic bail. That's the law which I studied.
Yes.
I haven't checked to see whether that has changed. But now, in Uganda, the drone comes, takes you, you disappear. If you do not have people who can run for you, like this carburetor. What redeemed the carburetor was one. He had CCTV cameras. So they had seen all those people who arrested them. They said, okay, you don't show us where he is, we are going to zoom you out, and they will see you. And they said, those people have families. If they are zoomed out, they will be seen. Can you imagine? So, in Uganda, there is total dictatorship, total shutdown of Ugandans not to speak, total fear, which has gripped people, and total violation of human rights, and capture of state institutions which cannot operate independently. We do not have the principle of separation of powers. Those magistrates, they operate from powers above. The judges, powers from above. So the institutions are scared. They are scared of their jobs. They are scared. And what has caused this dictatorship? Autocratic leadership. There is total autocratic leadership in this country. Powers from above, powers from above. If President Museveni is not aware that there are no abductions, then I think he has now come to admit the fact that when you stay in power for too long, people get used and everybody does what they want. And you lose control. You lose control of the nation. So if he, according to him, he doesn't see any abductions, if they are not there, then he has lost control over this nation. And I know, I live in this country. At one time, President Obote, by that time, Rutwa, Okero Rutwa removed President Obote. Obote had lost control over the nation long ago. I think it was these Rakasisis who had authority, and remember they are now in Museveni's government. Rakasisis had authority, and they would say power from above, power from above. For me, the moment the word power from above started applying here in Uganda, that's when I knew my dear president brother had lost it. That's when I knew he had lost it. Because power is from above where? Because anybody now can do anything, and they say it is from above.
That's where we are.
That's where we are now.
Yeah.
And you may find many of these things he doesn't even know. But if somebody, like the land, like all this land grabbing and so on, you think he knows the people who are grabbing the land, but they come and say powers from above. And at times you find that they are the ones, and those ones who are being used, the big state agents who are used to keep him in power, you find they are the ones who are doing all these wrong things. Now anybody can arrest anybody saying powers from above.
Does he still deserve to be called a president? Because when he swears
For me, don't ask me such a question, because
when he swears in, he says, I'll protect, preserve, and of course defend the constitution, protect Ugandans with their property.
Let me tell you, I'm a person who believes in God. Now the question you are raising, I'll put it to the biblical, the scriptures. You know, King Saul was doing very, very wrong. He was doing very wrong to David. David had delivered Saul. David had, when Saul was fearing Goliath and that kind of thing, and David had delivered Saul from that, and Saul became jealous and started hating and persecuting David. But David was saying, you don't touch the anointed of the Lord. And in fact, God gave David 2 times when he could have killed Saul. But he said, no, you don't touch the anointed of the Lord. The word of God says that all leadership comes from where?
From God.
From God. So for me, whether it is through reading, whether it is through what, as far as I know, if that leadership is from God, through reading and that kind of thing.
Is it still from God?
Do you read the Bible? Nebuchadnezzar, this God is amazing. God, don't joke with God. God is amazing. He can see you as wrong people, and you have become sinners, you are witches, you are crooked, and he can punish you. He can punish you with a leadership that will deal with you. You hear?
Yeah.
You need to read the Bible properly. But the question you are asking is does he still deserve to be called the president? Who is he? He's the president of Uganda. He's the president of Uganda according to the law, according to the authority, according to his swore by the constitution. The Electoral Commission declared him president of Uganda. Who are you not to call him president of Uganda? He's the president of Uganda.
A president who doesn't know what
happens. Do we have any other president?
A president who doesn't know what happens in his country.
Have you ever read The State of Africa, 50 Years of Independence by Miria? There is a book called The State of Africa, 50 Years of Independence. This man was documenting the long ago 50 years of independence. We need to document 60 because things are still the same. In that book, you'll find that some presidents who even took the central bank into their house. They were keeping the money in their houses. Yeah. You need to read that book. Africans, I don't know who created us. I know God created us, but I don't know what went wrong with it. He was keeping the money in the house, bringing the whole bank in the house, but he still remained a president. So Amin remained a president, and he was running, saying, I'm here, reaching Busia, saying, I'm the president, running, until you get another president. The president who is there is the one who remains the president. So whether he knows what is going on, whether he doesn't know, but what I know is that at his age right now, we need to be realistic. First of all, I don't know what he wants.
Yes.
I really don't know what he wants. And I talked to him many times. You said President Museveni, he says Uganda is not a failed state.
Yes.
But I want to categorically say it clear, and I want him to hear me, that President Museveni is a failed leader.
Okay.
Why? Because a leader who cannot have a follower. For the last 36 years, we are going into 40.
Yes.
And you've been leading a country, and you look among your people, and you don't see anybody to take your place. As a leader, you have totally failed. Because leadership is about service. And as you serve your people, you are concerned with them. And you are saying, when I leave, I must leave my trait behind. I must leave the role models behind. There must be, when President says, if I quit, when I see these people who need him, this empty, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call them empty-headed. I'm sorry, I'm calling you people who go and bow to the president and say, please don't leave. If you leave, Uganda is finished. I must call you, what word did I use? I have forgotten. I've forgotten the word. But surely, I question, do you have heads? I mean, how can you cry? There are 3 generations now. 3 generations, and you are crying. When you leave us, the country is finished. When you leave us, 40 years you've been leading Uganda. And when you leave Uganda, the country is finished. Then you have not led. I want everybody to hear this, whether they hate me or not. They must know what leadership is all about. It is about grooming people to take after you, to continue running with the vision that you came with. When you ask Miria Matembe, I'm sure out there, I have so many women, the NGOs, the organizations, I meet even young girls, they tell me, they call me Mama Matembe at home. So, because I led with the passion, I ran with the service, I did, and I let it go. It is there. But now, when I see these people, this doctor, this hopeless doctor, how can you know, in the Bible it says, Ephesians, Paul said, you Ephesians, were they Galatians?
The Galatians.
He said, the Galatians out there, who bewitched you?
Who
bewitched you? You have ears you can't hear. You have eyes you can't see. Surely in this country, really in this country, however much you love, by the way, I love President Mr. Museveni. Leave alone the president. You leave the word president. I love Mr. Museveni. I've already told you what he did for me. But I love him enough to tell him, please, sir, grandpa, you have done enough. You need to retire. But when I see people come and tell him, sir, when you are not there, we are finished, then they are already finished, these fellows. So that means his leadership has finished them. It has finished people. It has finished the nation. They are hopeless. The only hope they have is in him, which is totally wrong. And me, I end up by asking, but surely, President Museveni, what do you want? What do you want? Why do you demean? I remember Mount telling him, sir, remember your legacy. In 2003, this is how many years after? 20. We told him. So for me, whether the state is not failed, but his leadership is a failure. You cannot lead and have nobody to go into your footsteps.
As we wind up, Doctor,
and this business of bringing the sun.
Yes, that's where I was coming actually. He says
Uganda is a nation. It is not a home. It is not a personal home. It is not a family. It is a family of many, and it is a nation. Therefore, I saw this, whom I use the help me to call this hopeless. hopeless. They are hopeless because they don't have hope in God. They are hopeless. I call them hopeless and helpless. When I saw the people in West Nile, Simani, there was a video which was trending. And there was this woman, she said, Mama Terego. And there was another woman, they represent the Arua, or Western Nile. And they were saying, this is the best choice. This son, because he's been nurtured at his feet, because he knows what goes on. He knows what goes on in the family of Museveni, but not in the president, in the nation of Uganda. You imagine members of parliament thinking like that? When I say that they are blind and they can't see and they can't hear, am I wrong? You are a member of parliament and you go and you bow and say, please, all of you, we are here for Mo's project. He's the only one because he's been living in the home with the president. Was he living there as the deputy president? Was he managing the state, the nation's affairs with their family? Let him be the heir to his father's family. But the heir to Uganda, and you see the members of parliament, they were there dancing, eating. I saw them on the video. And there is this Mama Terego, come and I give you breasts, Simanyivichi. Nonsense! Nonsense!
Of recent, in this interview, of course, which he did in the US, he said he's not aware of the threats his son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, of which tweeted on his Twitter handle, of which he has threatened to crush all people against him, including journalists, calling them terrorists. Where does that take us? The dad says, my son, I'm not aware of the tweets. However, I'm aware of the tweets like about sports, but the most controversial ones,
but,
he's not aware of them.
If
threatening people.
If I put that in godly terms, because I was thinking, I pray.
Yes.
I was thinking and asking God, what is this happening? And God was showing me that he's showing us the level where we have reached. He's showing us the level where we have reached, where the son and the father. Do you know Solomon?
Yes, King Solomon.
You know who was it that went? No, David.
King David, yeah.
The son went to fight David, you remember? At one time. But David was a kingly man, so he won. But when you see the son running with a project in the midst of hunger, in the midst of suffering and so on, all the amount of money that was put there. And then the next time we see the president, 2026, they are moving around the whole country. This is just 1 year, 2 years down the road. The NRM government, people, are moving around the country, mobilizing for 2026 elections. And I saw this man Twadong. For me, when I see young people I want to thank God because he gave me brain and wisdom. Because when I see young people like Twadong, who should be having brain, wisdom, and knowledge, to be able to say, this nation, this is our generation. He's there saying, we met and we agreed that 2026, President Museveni must remain until we say no. Nonsense. Now I must use my words. That's total nonsense. And it is very bad for our country. And that's why I say that God is showing and saying, this is where you are. This is where you are going. But one thing I want to say, by the way, which the young people listening to me must know, is that every generation has its purpose to serve.
Yes.
And the word of God says that when King David had served his purpose in his generation, he rested. Me, as far as I'm concerned, President Museveni, I'm not saying resting, dying. As far as I'm concerned, should not be the president of this nation. He should have retired. That's me. That's me.
And you've been consistent
because
to that.
What I see going on is a nation gone. Because of materialism, because over they are bewitched. At times I sit and say, but is this witchcraft which is working over people? Because how can young people forget that
bow down
that President Museveni, when he was a young man and he saw bad leadership, he got up. He went, I was in UPM.
Yes.
When President Museveni came here, no, not President, when Mr. Yoweri Museveni came here, as a young man, when he was appointed Minister of Defense or whatever, I was here a young woman, you know. By then I think I was it 27 or around, was I 28 or something like that.
Young, vibrant and energetic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we ran with him. We said, yeah, these other parties were no good, UPC, DP, UPM. We ran with a new party. We ran with him and we lost. By the way, they never beat us. They never tortured us.
Yes.
We lost, and then he decided to go to the bush and fight. These young people, I've been telling young people, when President Museveni saw that things were going wrong, and he was a young man,
yes,
and this was his generation, he rose up.
He stood up, yeah?
Stood up, mobilized young people, these Kazwara, Victor Bwana, they died, they are not there now. If they were there, by the way, many of these people, they would not be with him, I'm telling you. Because they had gone to redeem this nation. They had gone to redeem this nation. And they came and redeemed it. Now that it has gone in a wrong direction, I don't advise them to go to the bush.
Yes.
Me, I advise them to rise up and say, this is our generation and it is time for us to serve our generation. And mobilize themselves here under the law, not going to fight. Me, I don't want them to fight. I want them even to go and tell President Museveni. And
and
tell him,
using the opportunity to bow down.
And tell him, sir, you know, you have really served us. We came from far, but right now, we are here jobless. We are suffering. Marijuana, alcoholism, because we are lost. We don't have, you know, what to do. The robbery, corruption has finished all the money. The schools are down. The teachers cannot get salary. The doctors, we are here. So please, sir, you served your purpose. We are here. We are educated. Okay, we are here. But we need time to organize ourselves and also find a way and a new strategy of leading ourselves.
Doctor, as we end this interview, do you see President Museveni back on the ballot in 2026? Or, because I've interviewed some senior citizens saying that he would die in power. He has no hopes of even handing over power to his son.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. For me, I don't know, Bambe, what happened to this man. I don't know why he loves this power this much. And you know, when we were there in the cabinet, President Museveni used it, not in the cabinet actually, I think even in the parliament when we would be closed alone talking. He used to laugh at those people. He was laughing at Kenya, in fact at Moi. He said, you know what, I think these people, why they want to stay there is because they fear of what they have done. He used to say it, and please put it there. He used to say they fear, I think they have fear of what they've done. They fear that they will be persecuted.
They fear the consequences.
And he was saying, I think we should pass a law where we say that once the president has finished, they should not persecute them. He was telling us that if we pass that law, then they would be able to feel free to retire.
You've forgotten to pass the law.
No, he was just discussing, talking about it.
He was advising.
Now, when I see him loving powers, look, you are telling me that when he went to America and they asked him, are you coming again? He said, it is Ugandans who will choose. No! Ugandans, let me ask you, can Ugandans come and pick me from this house and take me to contest for elections when I don't want? Can they tell me? Can Ugandans come and say, Matembe, we want you come? If they came, I would tell them, now, you know what? If you think I'm your president and you want me, you go and make sure you win everything, and when you are through, you give me the chair. But the president who says, when NRM calls me, I will go. Aren't you a human being? Do people choose for you? Do people choose for President Museveni? Didn't Honorable President Nyerere, he was called by his people, they said you are not going yet. He told them, you people, no, it is time for me to rest. Because if I don't rest, when will other people take the position? He said, no, let us organize, let me go, and he left. So this horror, I I mean, I don't know, I don't want to abuse the president, I want to use the word nonsense. But this horror thing, or this horror pretentious excuse of covering your determination to stay in power by saying that for me, if the NRIM says yes, I will go. Why? What have you done to mobilize leadership in NRIM? But do you think NRIM is a party? NRIM is equal to Museveni.
You still call it
because
a party?
Any silly party, I will call it silly this time, any silly party which has no rules, which has no leadership capacity, which bows to the whims of one person, which cannot have primaries for presidential elections, is not any useful party at all. It is in fact not a party.
Doctor, I wonder what happens to people when they're elected, because you've been, this is the final question. I don't know. Okay. I don't know what happens to people. I remember your good friend Crispin Kahelu was in Sedu. I don't know what happens to them when they get into positions. Now the Human Rights Commission is one of the most silent organizations we've ever had in Uganda. There are atrocities happening, human rights violations and whatever. They're enjoying life in the US, whatever. And
who?
No,
but you see, one thing you need to know.
What happens to people when they go to those positions?
You need to separate politics from the work of government. You get it? And the civil society. Now, Human Rights Commission is a government institution. It is not a civil society organization. It is a government institution. And it works according to the rules that they have. Okay? So when you go there and become a commissioner, and it was not wrong to appoint Kahir to be a commissioner, because, I mean, young people, can't they get jobs? Do you have to hide away so that you don't work for government? You see, the thing that disturbs me is people don't know that working for government and working for the nation, they are two different things. If you are working, I may be in opposition, but I get a job in government.
Yes.
Like if they make me the chairperson, Judicial Service Commission, Miria Matembe. If they appointed me, I would go and normally I should go and take the appointment. I should go and do the appointment. But that does not mean that Museveni has bowed to me. But because people don't separate working for the nation and working for a specific government, they think whenever they give you a job, they think you have been bought. And that's why some of us, when they say come, you say, I must keep my integrity. But people should be able to understand that as a Ugandan in opposition, I should also work for Uganda. I mean, it is a nation, I must work for my nation. But say that when you are in opposition, you cannot get appointment in any government job, which is not politicking. If it is politicking, yes. But if it is not politicking, then you go and do the job. Therefore, Kayer used to be Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy. He mobilized, he did all the wonderful good work in Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy. But he had retired from the Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy. But I think they know he's interested in human rights. And moreover, he had worked on a certain, civic education for public education. And I think that's why they appointed him to go to promote that civic education within the Human Rights Commission, because he loves it and he would have gone to educate the people about human rights. Now he's there in the Human Rights Commission. Unless you tell me that Kaheru is there doing wrong there, being used to do wrong things.
I think this time around that commission is very silent. It's not.
Let me tell you, that commission
the people.
That commission is chaired by a person who is, I think, 100% agent of President Museveni. It's like the other commission. this Electoral Commission.
Okay.
And now, if that commission is chaired by that person, and the commissioners are there supposed to work, do they, unless they resign, do they now separate, do they go and do their own things which are not within the commission? And secondly, I understand that commission is completely unfunded. That it has no funds, so they cannot go and mobilize people in the Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
But when it comes talking about...
So it's a toothless commission.
Yeah, it is a toothless commission. It is just there for a public show. You cannot be interested in violating human rights and silencing Ugandans and then promote Human Rights Commission.
Your final remarks to the country, and how do we achieve justice, the one you're fighting for? How do we achieve a free country, democratic country come 2023, a country that follows human rights, that of course follows the constitution that you promulgated in 1995? In your parting shot, Doctor.
For me, we have discussed all this. In the physical, we are in a desperate, helpless state, which we, physical as human beings, cannot change.
Okay.
But in the spirit, because me, I trust in God, I believe in God, and I know the motto of this country says, even for God and my country, although we have abused it, we say we lay our future in the hands of God, although we have laid it in witchcraft and so on. But I still feel that God is the owner of this nation. God has authority and power over this nation. But the way God works is, he says, call upon me and I will answer you. Repent and ask for forgiveness and cry to me, I will come and heal your land. And it is there in Chronicles, chapter 7, it's verse 1 to 14 or something, I may not get the scripture well. He says, when my people who are called by my name, remember, they humble themselves, they turn away from their sins, and they call upon me, I will hear them from heaven and heal their land. I will hear from heaven, forgive them, and heal their land. Our land needs healing. And the call I'm telling to Ugandans, all of you Ugandans who are called by God's name, all the Christians, all those who know that God exists and they believe in his son Jesus Christ as the Redeemer, all of you seek God. I want to tell them, each individual should go into their closet and pray to God and seek him and repent and ask him what role they can play. I'm not saying go and pray and pray and pray 24 hours. In your prayer, ask God, what can you do? What role can you do to redeem Uganda from this desperate and helpless state of affairs? And God will answer you and we shall be redeemed. For me, I'm not helpless, I'm not hopeless, I'm not worried. I put everything into God, and to Akaraba, I have seen him deliver us from Amin. I saw him deliver us from Rutwa Okero. I saw him deliver us from Mwanga. I saw him deliver us from Obote too. I will see him deliver us again. I only pray that I'll be alive to see and tell the story. Otherwise, I wish you Ugandans happy
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, please. Don't drive bad on the road. You are finishing people. Be patient. I want to, by the way, bring my condolences to this member of parliament, really. It was a big tragedy. It is so sad. Please be patient. Be patient and consider the other road users.
Yes.
And don't go into drunkardness, and we need to bow to God. I want every church to fill up and cry to God so that we can be redeemed from this suffering.
Amen. That's Dr. Miria Matembe for you. Of course, we do appreciate your time, Doctor, and of course thanks for the dedication, and we can of course call it a wrap from here. And we say, of course, we will meet next time. As she has already said, yes, of course, in the recent past, only 8 days, accidents have claimed 83 lives. Yeah, that's very, very worrying. In just 8 days, yeah, 83 lives are gone. So you need to drive, not carelessly, but carefully. And even still, this goes to those who are in position to cater for the roads and whatever, because there are many roads which are in a very, very wounding state. So as you drive, you need to know how you drive. There is a way we drive in Uganda compared to other countries. My friend Fad will tell me, you don't drive like this, the straight way, because of the potholes and manholes which are really unhandled. You need to drive caring for your life.
Uganda Yancha.